Hello everybody, welcome to today's Knife 911. Today we're going to be talking about this guy, the Opinel No. 9 Carbone. So, just getting started here, the Opinel No. 9, it's something of a fixture really. It's one of those knives that everyone knows about, and pretty much everybody either has or has had at one point. These things are something of a byword in the knife community. Well, we'll just jump right into it. Here's the 911 on this guy. It's $16. Let's just put that right up front. 16 bucks. That's it. Just $16. And it's basically unchanged since before the First World War. Not as an Opinel, right? But identical knives have been made in Savoie, France since then. Lathed beech handles, and a locking collar, and a blade which has more or less this shape have been made in Opinel really since before the First World War. Alright, let's get into its stats. It's 8.15 inches or 207 millimeters long overall. Closed, it's 4.65 or 118 millimeters. It's got a 3.5 inch blade, 89 millimeters. It has 0.8 inches of width. That's 20.3 millimeters. It also has the same height. It weighs just 2 ounces. This thing is feather light, 56.7 grams. It's got a zero drop clip point. So from this plane right here, there is no drop to the point. And this I'm going to call a clip right here. It carries a full flat grind with the last third of it, right about there, carrying the distal taper. And it's made of 0.075 inch stock or 1.91 millimeter stock. So this thing is extremely thin. I mean, we're talking about stock that's less than 1/10 of an inch. All right, now that rounds that out. Opinel claims that this zero drop clip point is derived from the Middle Eastern yatagan, which is a type of sword. Typically, a yatagan was used by cavalry. It's hard to see the similarity here, but alright, whatever. It's also hard to find something of note to discuss here, and in a way, that's what makes this knife great. Most of the good stuff going on here flies under the radar because of slick, well-tuned, and well-executed single-hand opening knives with super steel blades and how used to them we've gotten. It's easy to pass up a sub-$20 non-stainless two-hand opening folder when you could go for a $32 Kershaw Atmos, which has a stainless Sienkiewicz-designed hollow ground flipper-operated blade. But you have to buy this knife to know what you'd missed. But once you do, you realize that there's more going on here than meets the eye. The reason old Sabatier knives carry the reputation they do, along with all the other old French carbon steel from Thiers, is not because their steel is super hard. It's relatively soft compared to modern super steels. That reputation was earned for its exceedingly fine grain structure, which allows edges to be honed and stropped to an incredible edge. Modern steels also have very fine grain structure, if they're crucible particle metallurgy steels, or CPM. But thus far, having sharpened all the knives I've sharpened, traditional French carbon steel sports a finer grain and sharpens up easier than any CPM steel in common use. And this is likely due to the quality of the heat treat at work here. When those old Sabatiers were being made, the smiths who made them would work on 4 or 5 blades at a time. They would be forging one. They'd have one that just went into the fire, one that had been in the fire and was ready to come out, and they'd have 2 more cooling after being forged. So what that did for them was that it gave each one of those blades a full thermal cycle every single time it was worked. And what that did was spheritize the steel. You can think of spheritizing, without getting too technical, you can think of spheritizing as kind of a hyper refining of the grain structure before final heat treatment. Now, I doubt Opinel blades are spheronized, but they do have excellent heat treats, and they have some of the finest grain I've run across in folding knives. And said heat treat doesn't give a high hardness. I'd be surprised if an Opinel blade tested above 56 on the Rockwell scale here. But they sharpen up with regular stones and strops very easily, and you can achieve hair-whittlingly sharp edges with just one double-sided stone and a strop with some compound. That's really all you need, and that's the beauty that's going on here. All this is to say, don't disregard the traditional French carbon steel because it isn't stainless and we have shiny CPM super steel. Then there's the other thing which this knife has going for it, and that's its blade profile. Having a zero drop tip with this full flat grind gives this thing a useful kind of belly right here. And it's a kind of usefulness with food that is really incredibly welcome. In fact, taken together with its very thin 0.075 inch or 1.9 millimeter blade stock, this knife has replaced steak knives for me. If I'm going out for steak or if I'm making it at home, you can bet that this number 9 Carbone is in my pocket and will be used during that meal. I often find myself getting disgusted and having to fire steak knives at restaurants because they're just dull. I'm sorry, but there it is. And I don't want to butcher anything, no pun intended, I don't want to butcher anything more than it already has been. So yes, nail nick openers can be annoying, right? The twist collar lock here can be annoying to operate as well. Remember, it's $16. How high can your expectations really be at that price? Moving on, it's also very lightweight at just 2 ounces or 56.7 grams. So even though it doesn't have a pocket clip, it just rides in your pocket well. It plays with other items in the pocket, not horribly, but not super well. And it will tarnish easily if neglected. You can see that my Opinel here has some patina on it. It's going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. That's fine. Patina, I don't have a problem with patina at all. But if you neglect this thing, it will rust up on you. So my recommendation for you is to use a little beeswax and just use a cloth and just polish it right into the blade every now and then. There's really nothing more to it than that. That's what I do because I want to use my knife on food. Right? So I don't want to be using, Royal Purple Max film or any of the modern rust inhibitors or, stuff like that because that's not food safe. Traditional beeswax will do just fine. Just heat up a little bit, put it on a cloth, spread a tiny little thin coat onto the blade, right? And then just buff it right out. It's really not hard. So, even though I do that, it's not going to keep steak juices from staining your blade. Some people use lemons to force the patina to form quickly, and it gives the knife some additional protection against rust, but I just prefer to use the beeswax method. Anyway, that's me. So for my dispatch on this, guys, if you sharpen knives, you should have a few Carbones in your possession. If you hate dull knives at steakhouses and constantly find yourself annoyed with them, you should have an Opinel Carbone in your pocket. Blade enthusiasts should experience just how sharp one of these things can get. And for the price, it's worth finding out if you love it or hate it. I love mine. It's the sharpest knife in my possession and the most sharpened. It finds its way into my pocket often and for good use and for good reason on the regular. And, well, I like to eat things. And sharp knives are greatly appreciated when I do. All right, everybody, that's today's Knife 911. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, give us a share.